Thank you, Shannon. Like Shannon said, my name is Becky Okalita, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm a transition liaison right now with the Office of Aging and Disability Services. Prior to my position with ODES, I was a transition specialist and educator for many years. In just a week's time from now, I'm actually going to be transitioning myself to be project manager for the Pathways to Partnership grant with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. I have a master's degree in transition leadership from UMass Boston with the Institute of Community Inclusion. Talking about transition is my jam. Some may say I might even bleed transition. I'm very, very passionate about the topic. And I love to connect other providers and other interested community members with resources, information, and networks. So thanks again for your time today. In this webinar, we will learn about the importance of transition services. We will explore why interagency collaboration and collaboration in general is key to good transition planning. We will review the roles of members on the transition IEP team. Lastly, we will bring it all together to see how to create a seamless transition process. I have my colleague Nikki with me, and she's going to be helping me share helpful links about transition in the chat as we move along. So, why are we all here today? I recently spoke with my project director on this. Words can't express how proud I am of our Path for Me team and the work that we have done towards transition services these past several years. Today's webinar is just a part of the culmination of our efforts to reach a broader audience to improve transition services across the state of Maine. Next year, in 2026, the new lifespan waiver is anticipated to take effect. That will enable students as young as 14 to receive adult services. This aligns with IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, of when to begin the transition planning process. So, when the lifespan waiver takes effect, many providers will be working with transition-aged youth. And as you'll see in this presentation, there are many components to successful transition planning. The state of Maine has many acronyms and abbreviations, and it can be very confusing. Some even mean different things. So for example, in state services, CRC can also be known as Certified Rehabilitation Counselor. But for the sake of this presentation, I will be referring to CRC from the ODES definition, which is Community Resource Coordinator. For clarity's sake, this list covers the majority of acronyms that I will be discussing during today's presentation. I borrowed this thought from a self-determination conference I attended a while back, led by Michael Waymeyer. He's one of the founding fathers on the idea of self-determination for individuals with disabilities. So, if students floated in life jackets for 12 years, would they be expected to swim if the jackets were suddenly taken away? Many of us can agree that the answer to this question would be no. In fact, none of us can be expected to swim if we haven't been taught. This is what I think of when we're not allowing individuals the opportunity for dignity of risk. We all are in the field of social services because we want to help others. However, are we really helping others if we're not giving them the tools to self-manage their own lives? It's important for us as educators, case managers, community resource coordinators, VR counselors, etc., the entire team, to work together to not only teach the transition youth to swim, but also how to successfully navigate the waters of post-secondary adult life. So what are transition services? This definition comes directly from our website, which we will share in the chat. Transition services are a coordinated set of activities that support a youth's move from school to post-school activities. These include, but are not limited to, continuing education, employment, adult services, recreation, and independent living. In Maine, all youth who receive special education services are entitled to transition services beginning no later than the 9th grade. The most important member of the transition team is the transition youth. The transition youth is the leader of the IEP meeting and is the reason why everybody has a seat at the table. The transition youth has a great opportunity to practice self-determination skills and self-advocacy by demanding what they need to be successful. The transition youth in this leadership role provides a foundation for self-directing their own services when they are adults. This is a key feature of the lifespan waiver and a great way to seamlessly blend predictors of post-school success, which I will discuss later on in this presentation. So this visual comes from IRIS, which is a national online resource on evidence-based practices in education. The transition youth and their families and caregivers face a monumental task of connecting with a wide range of people from across the state. As a transition liaison for ODES, I fall under DHHS in my role to support the transition individual. However, within DHHS itself, there's so many other people that will support the transition youth, such as people from OCFS, OBH, OFI, Maine Care, and then we reach other departments, and technically under free and appropriate public education and least restrictive environment, the transition student has access to all facets of education, although primarily we'll work with the Office of Special Services and Inclusive Education, which is called OSSI. The transition youth will also most likely work with the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services at the Department of Labor, but that is not exclusive, as the Department of Labor supports employment for all individuals within the state of Maine. However, through VR, the transition youth may enroll in PREETs, which is pre-employment transition services, or other vocational rehabilitation services that will assist them with their employment goals. So, when a transition youth and their families or caregivers begins to explore services, they usually start at their town or local school community. The main school administrative units are depicted in the middle. There are 8 DHHS districts pictured left and 5 VR regions pictured right. As a community case manager, CRC, or anyone working in transition, it's important to understand which region or district covers the school that the individual is residing in. I admit that I get confused when I look at all of these maps. So can you imagine what that must be like for a transition youth and their families or caregivers that are exploring services for the first time? So what is the importance of a transition team? I often think of the phrase, "it takes a village," when referring to transition services. An article from Frontiers was recently shared with me, and it said this: the phrase, "it takes a village to raise a child," originates from an African proverb and means that it takes many people, or the village, to provide a safe, healthy environment for children, where children are given the security they need to develop and flourish and be able to realize their hopes and dreams. This requires an environment where children's voices are taken seriously and where multiple people, or the villagers, including parents, siblings, extended family members, neighbors, teachers, professionals, community members, and policymakers care for a child. In America, we use this phrase as a way to evoke feelings of community on a local to even global scale. When we think of transition services, we truly need a village of people to support the transition youth. Wraparound and comprehensive services come from all members of the local community and beyond. The IEP transition team is a micro-village. Each transition youth will cultivate individualized experiences and connections that contribute to building their IEP and team. It is important for outside agencies to be a member of this experience and participate in the IEP process. Those agency representatives will need to communicate with the school to get permission for the release of information. The form can be found in the chat. Every entity and agency that supports the individual in transition should determine their role and responsibility in delivering supports and services as part of the transition plan. I will review some of those roles shortly, but take a moment to reflect on what type of roles and responsibilities the transition youth and team will have. Every transition individual that you encounter will have diverse needs and skills that must be assisted through a variety of support systems. Usually, a designated special education teacher in the transition youth school will be the IEP case manager. We have a great description of that role in more detail on our website. The teacher will perform current, validated, and age-appropriate transition assessments, which can then help the youth identify their vision and develop goals and objectives that align with that vision. The IEP case manager will use all of this to create an enriching transition plan. I recently spoke with a Maine vocational rehabilitation representative, and they were able to tell me the following. Transition vocational rehabilitation counselors have regular schedules at each school and also meet with students and families virtually and in the community as well. The hope is that VR counselors get an invite to the IEP and transition meetings. The transition VRC can offer a lot of support, and the intent is to work closely with the school to provide information on transition planning. Pre-employment transition services, or PREETs, can be accessed through a VR application or the PREETs registration form. If you want more information, I suggest you check out the VR webpage, which describes their services more in depth. I just summarized some of this in this slide. And as you can see, the VR counselor is also working in line with the IEP case manager to help create a robust IPE, or individualized plan of employment. Our community resource coordination brochure offers a more in-depth look at what CRCs do. We also have another great resource on our website, the role of the community case manager or care coordinator. The community case manager or care coordinator does fill a vital role in ensuring that the youth experience a smooth transition from children's to adult services, while keeping the youth's dreams and goals centered to all that planning. The CRC will help the transition youth be in the driver's seat of their own life, help them develop a vision for living their best life, and assist in making a PCP, or person-centered plan, that uses the individual's strengths, natural supports, community resources, and waiver services to help the transition youth's vision become a reality. The transition IEP team will consider many factors that will contribute to the individual's success. The National Technical Assistance Center on Transition determined the following predictors that contribute to post-school success for students in transition. When developing goals and objectives related to the IEP, IPE, and PCP, it's important to consider these essential elements for the transition youth. Which members of the IEP team can assist the transition youth with these indicators? We know that by giving the transition youth the opportunity to lead their IEP, it provides them with a foundation for self-realization, self-advocacy, self-determination, goal setting, youth autonomy, and so much more. When reviewing this presentation with the National Disability Institute, we determined that parent expectations and paid employment were two really strong indicators that have evidence base. I also spoke with the head of the Maine Parent Federation, and as a parent herself, she believes inclusion in general education is critical. Considering these other factors, how can we as a team embed this into our transition programming? Perhaps with VR and PREETs, we are offering career awareness and career technical education. And through adult services, we are providing community experiences. However, these indicators do not need to be mutually exclusive from one another. And some of these skills can be addressed simultaneously. For example, the community resource coordinator and general education teacher could also play a critical role in employment just beyond VR, just as VR could contribute to community experiences and goal setting. Additionally, a student could be in the community learning self-advocacy, travel skills, social skills, decision making, and gain psychological empowerment all at the same time. It sounds complex, but these experiences blended together with the support of a diverse team really makes this process much more simpler and seamless. A comprehensive post-secondary transition plan should include the following things. There should be a course of study, age of majority, a student invite, hopefully the student would be leading the IEP, age-appropriate transition assessments, measurable post-secondary goals, annual goals, transition services, and then of course, those outside agencies. This graphic was actually borrowed from the online national resource TIG or the Transition Improvement Grant. So as we're going along, Nikki has been doing a wonderful job sharing those resources in the chat. So this document is Section 9, the Post-Secondary Transition Plan of the Maine User IEP. Maine OSSI cites the importance of a meaningful day in transition programming. Meaningful day means individualized access for persons with developmental disabilities to support their participation in activities and functions of community life that are desired and chosen by the general population. This includes purposeful and meaningful work, self-empowerment, skill development and employment, educational, social, and community inclusion activities that are directly linked to the individual's vision, goals, and desired personal outcomes. Section 9, or the transition planning form here, will lay out a course of study that assists the transition youth. Please note the highlighted section, agency involvement. Different agencies such as DHHS and DVR should be identified and attend the meeting for grading of funding to occur. If an agency representative has been invited but cannot attend, request the family provide a copy of the Individual Plan of Employment, or IPE, from DVR, or the Person-Centered Plan, or PCP, from ODES or OBH, so that the connections can be made across the different planning partners. Under the federal home and community-based services rule, individuals have these undeniable rights. Integration and access to the community means that transition youth should have the same chances to be active and an included member of their neighborhood and community as anybody else. They should have the chance to find paid integrated employment, participate in local activities, and access waiver services in their community. Choice means they can select Maine care services and supports that they need, as well as who provides them and where they receive them. Transition youth should have the options to live and receive services in places that offer people with and without disabilities. Individual rights include privacy, dignity and respect, and freedom from restraint or freedom from someone forcing anyone to do anything. Independence means that transition youth are in charge of making decisions about their life and what they want to do. These decisions include their daily activities, their surroundings, and the people they interact with. Some examples of independence are setting your own schedule, choosing where you want to go, or making decisions about how to spend your own money. So we did review the indicators for post-school success, as well as developing an IEP with those indicators in mind. The person-centered planning tool that's utilized by the state of Maine, or ODES, aligns with these indicators of post-school success, as you can see in this life course graphic. In addition, the supports intensity scale for adults, or the SIS-A, measures all of these very same indicators. So you can see across the board that the expectations for a comprehensive transition services are vast, and it can't simply be done by one entity. As I mentioned before, it takes a village. The future lifespan waiver moves from a system-centered model towards a person-centered model. This is the same idea when designing an individualized education program. Rather than planning a lifetime of programs, we are crafting a desirable lifestyle. Instead of offering a limited number of usually segregated program options, we are seeking to design an unlimited number of desirable experiences within and outside of the classroom. Instead of designing an IEP and providing options based on stereotypes, we are finding new possibilities for each and every individual. Whether developing PCPs or IEPs or any type of plan that is individualized and person-centered, we should consider O'Brien's 5 valued experiences. How can we increase the presence of a person in local community life? How can we expand and deepen people's friendships? How can we enhance the reputation people have and increase the number of valued ways people can contribute? How can we help people have more control and choice in life? How can we assist people to develop more competencies and contribute their unique gifts? So how can the continuity of programming at school continue so that the last day of the transition students' schooling mirrors the first day of their adult life? Again, we are reflecting on indicators of success here and now tying them to adult services. As the transition student moves to work and begins activities within the community, how can we continue to coordinate with the team? What are some ways to prepare the transition youth to receive the same level of fading support within the adult agencies so that they can live a life as integrated as possible with their peers and their community? So in the beginning of this presentation and throughout, I have mentioned our website. Our team developed this site and it has many useful resources for transition planning, including roles of key members in the transition process. One key feature of our website is this resource. It's our transition timeline. And this assists the transition youth and other invested team members in understanding the important milestones within the transition process from ages 14 to 23, such as age of majority and when to start seeking pre-employment services. And these are just a few resources that you can reach out to in the state of Maine to have more support with transition services. And they're people that we have worked with directly, so I would recommend you checking them out. Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, the Maine CDC, and Maternal and Child Health, Office of Special Services and Inclusive Education, the Maine Parent Federation, Social Security, and Disabilities Rights Maine. And this is our group email, odesyouth@maine.gov. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions in regards to transition or any cases that you need support with.